From 5 points in 6 games, to 2-2 against Arsenal in a game they deserved to win, 4-1 against Tottenham in a game where they got away with the win, and a thrilling 4-4 against reigning champions and treble holders Man City. It's starting to look like Mauricio Pochettino has finally taken the reins at Chelsea, and he's offering the fans a glimmer of hope for top 4. But what if I told you that Pochettino is actually being held back? That he could be doing much better with this team? And what if I told you that Graham Potter dealt with the exact same issues last season down to every last detail? How would you guys as Chelsea fans react to that? Well, let's find out. We're going to start by comparing the football philosophy of both these managers to see how their playstyles match up. As we discussed repeatedly last season, Graham Potter's philosophy can be distilled into 3 key points: tactical and positional flexibility, especially across the front 4 or 5 players, creating overloads in wide areas to create space centrally or vice versa, and using a high press and possession to pin opponents in their own half so that his team creates a lot of chances. If you'd like to learn more about this, please check out the links in the description below. For Pochettino, we analyzed his tactics on this channel back in August, and here's what we found. Poch wants his attacking midfielders and strikers to have great positional flexibility so that they can pull opposition midfielders and defenders out of position and create space in behind or between them. He also wants to build out from the back with defenders, goalkeepers, and central defensive midfielders that can pass out from the back and move into space to create overloads in defensive areas that translate into overloads across the pitch. And out of possession, he wants to create numerical superiority to win the ball back high up the pitch and create lots of chances. And you don't have to take my word on any of this because we have 2 clips from that Man City game to show you exactly what I'm talking about. This first clip is from the 4th minute of last weekend's game at Stamford Bridge. We start with Rodri receiving the ball in his own half, and you can see how Chelsea's front 4 of Sterling, Gallagher, Jackson, and Palmer are kind of in their starting shape. As we play along, the ball goes out to Gvardiol, who plays it into Akanji very quickly in defensive midfield, and you can see Akanji trying to move forward into attacking midfield areas. As he does this, notice how Gallagher has raced back in order to chase after Akanji. As we play forward a bit more, Gallagher ends up reaching where Akanji is in midfield and puts a tackle into him right there. Here, look at how Enzo, Sterling, Palmer, and Jackson are all in their starting positions more or less. And as Chelsea wins the ball back and gets control of it in possession through James and Palmer right here, the ball gets back into Gallagher's feet, and we can see that Sterling, Jackson, Palmer, and Enzo this time are ready to break with Gallagher. As Gallagher drives forward, Jackson actually comes short to pick up the ball from him, and as we pause it right here, look at how much space is created through the middle for Sterling and Enzo just because of the movement that's done by Jackson and Gallagher in the wide areas. And as Jackson turns inside and passes it forward into Enzo in this space over here, Enzo ends up getting fouled by Alvarez and pulled back. Had Enzo not been brought down in this area, there would be so much space for Raheem Sterling to exploit one-on-one against Walker. And as fast as Walker is, it would be difficult to stop Sterling in this kind of form. But the overall key point here is that Poch, much like Potter, wants tactical and positional flexibility to create overloads from defense into midfield into attack and drive space from those overloads in central areas or the opposite flank. In our second clip, we'll see how Poch likes to build out from the back to create overloads throughout the pitch, starting with a Man City attack where Foden's trying to cross the ball into Haaland in the central area, but as we'll see in a second, Caicedo is able to block it out. So Caicedo gets the ball quite easily, and he turns inside the box. As he does that, pay attention to how compact Chelsea's backline and midfield is. You can see all 7 players inside this little box over here. As Caicedo plays it out to Cucurella on the left-hand side, we'll start to see some clever movement from the midfield and attack to play the ball out. So Cucurella receives the ball and plays it forward into Gallagher in this sort of area over here. And as soon as Gallagher receives it, he's ready to play it into Enzo in this compact shape between these 4 City players. Now, while this may seem like a risk, if Enzo can get the ball out of here, Chelsea are pretty much through onto the City defense. And that's exactly what Enzo does, because as soon as he receives it, he plays it forward into Sterling first time, who receives it and plays it first time into Caicedo in midfield as well. Now, as Caicedo takes one touch before playing it into Sterling's path, look at how completely free he is in the middle of the pitch to run at the City defense. If you were paying attention throughout this clip, Chelsea used 3 or 4 triangles between Cucurella, Caicedo, Gallagher, Enzo, and Sterling to get past the entire City press. And this is the perfect example of using overloads to progress the ball throughout the pitch. It doesn't have to be 4, 5, or 6 players involved in the same move in the same area of the pitch. You just need chains of 3 players that are passing and moving to do stuff like this. So in both clips from the first 6 minutes of that game, we're seeing that Poch and Potter have very similar footballing philosophies, which begs the question, how do their performances compare? In 12 Premier League games so far, Pochettino has 4 wins, 4 draws, and 4 losses for a total of 16 points. Chelsea have scored 21 goals from about 26 expected goals, which shows you they're underperforming in front of goal. They've conceded 16 goals from about 15 XG, shows you they're conceding as much as they should be. Now, if we look at the Premier League table so far, we see that Chelsea is sitting in 12th place. But how do they actually rank in terms of underlying metrics? When we look at expected goals, Chelsea is actually second in the league, just behind Liverpool. And despite having just 1 XG less than Liverpool, Chelsea have scored 6 fewer goals than the Reds have. When we look at expected goals against, Chelsea is 6th on the table, just behind Liverpool, who have somehow conceded just 10 goals from about 15 XG. So you can see that on both ends of the pitch, Chelsea's in-game performance is either just where it should be in terms of conceding or way behind the curve in terms of scoring. Despite all that, their expected goal difference ranks them 4th in the league at 10.2, which puts them 8 positions higher than they currently are. So what exactly explains this discrepancy in performance versus results? I think big chance conversion has something to do with this. According to Opta, big chances are situations where a player should reasonably be expected to score because they're either shooting from close range or have no pressure on them while shooting, or both. Chelsea have created 40 big chances this season and missed 24 of them in just 12 games, which means, on average, they could have scored at least 1 more goal per game. And if we put that into play against all of their results this season, Chelsea could have actually won 4 more games than they drew and drawn 2 more games than they lost, adding a total of 10 points to their tally, which would put them in the top 4 at the very least. And I get it. Games aren't decided by expected goals and underlying metrics. You have to consider actual performances because actual good performances win you games. So let's look at Chelsea's performances this season. Based on a combination of the eye test, expected goals, big chances, and man of the match performances, I've gone through all 12 Chelsea games to decide which ones they should have won, lost, and drawn. And here's what I've come up with. Chelsea should have 8 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses for 25 points from 12 games this season. And I want to take you guys through some of the contentious ones here because I know some of you have your eyebrows raised. Against Liverpool on opening day, they created much better chances and could have easily gotten another goal to win. Against West Ham, they had so many chances to score, while West Ham took every single chance they got. Plus, Alphonse Areola, their goalkeeper, was the man of the match, which tells you the entire story. Against Forest, again, the opposition goalkeeper was the man of the match, with Chelsea not even converting once on more than 2 XG and 3 big chances. Against Villa, they would have won minus the Malo Gusto sending off in the 50th or 60th minute, and against Arsenal, they would have won if Robert Sanchez wasn't playing for Arsenal. So after that explanation, if you're still not convinced that Chelsea should have won more games this season, it's probably because Pochettino's biggest problem has been finishing. Had Chelsea forwards and attacking midfielders been able to convert like any other top 4 team has been converting this season, they would actually be 4th or 5th in the table instead of 12th. And similarly, when we look at the 22 games that Potter managed in the Premier League, surprise, surprise, his Chelsea team also struggled to convert their chances. As you can see here, They scored 21 goals from 29 XG despite creating 42 big chances across those games. They even had similar possession stats as Poch's Chelsea at 59%. Now, if we applied the same performance-based metrics that I applied to Poch's Chelsea just a while ago, Potter should have had 11 wins, 4 draws, and 7 losses to give him 37 points across 22 games. Instead, he managed to win just 7 games with 7 draws and 8 losses for 28 points. Those 9 extra points could have been the difference between him getting the sack and him staying at Chelsea long term, or at least finishing last season as the manager. And I know at this point, some Chelsea fans might say, Potter was crap. His football was crap, and Bowley was right to sack him. But trust me, his team played some good football amongst a lot of turmoil and mitigating circumstances at Chelsea. And don't forget that he also didn't have Caicedo, Palmer, Jackson, Lavia, Nkunku, Disasi, and Ugochukwu to choose from while he was struggling. And this brings us to our next point, the impact of transfers and injuries on both managers. Back in February 2023, before the summer window took place, Todd Bowley had spent over 600 million euros across 15 players. 8 of those 15 players had arrived in January to a team that Potter had had for just 3 months. And I don't care how experienced you are as a manager, it is impossible to get any sort of harmony or cohesion into a squad which is that bloated. On top of all this, out of the 24 players that were available to Potter, at least 11 of them missed games due to injury in his time in charge. And this includes Raheem Sterling, Reece James, Ben Chilwell, and N'Golo Kante, all out for extended periods, all who were arguably the most senior players in the team. Under these kinds of mitigating circumstances, how does one expect someone like Potter to succeed? It is absolute madness. So let's compare all of this to Pochettino. Since his arrival, Chelsea have spent 462 million euros on 11 players and have promoted an additional 3 players from the youth team to make it effectively 14 new players in the dressing room. Chelsea have also sold Havertz, Mount, Kovacic, Koulibaly, Pulisic, Mendy, and Loftus-Cheek, who were all arguably in and around the starting 11 last season. And in terms of injuries, Chelsea have missed Fofana, Chalobah, Nkunku, Lavia, Badiashile, Chilwell, Chukwuemeka, and Levi Colwill for combined 77 games this season. And again, all 8 of these players could be considered starters under Pochettino, but all of them have missed extended time this season. So when we saw Chelsea manage to get just 5 points from their first 6 games, despite having one of the easiest starting schedules of the top teams in the Premier League, that should have come as no surprise to any of us. Todd Bowley and the Chelsea ownership have put yet another manager in a predicament where there's no harmony or cohesion within the squad because of transfers and injuries. And the players that have played in this period can't seem to find the back of the net if their life depended on it. So as you can tell, we have identified clear similarities between Graham Potter and Mauricio Pochettino in terms of their playstyles, their performances, the impact of transfers on their squad, and the impact of injuries on their squads. So what exactly are our key takeaways? How does any of this help Chelsea Football Club or their fans process this situation? Look, Graham Potter is long gone. I'm not advocating for him to come back and manage this club in any shape or form. But as you can see from the underlying issues at the club, there isn't that much that has changed from last season. Pochettino got a full preseason, whereas Graham Potter didn't, so this team is naturally performing a little better. And Poch has gotten some players in key areas of midfield and attack that Potter just didn't have. But despite all that, and despite the fact that Pochettino is a better coach than Graham Potter, he isn't actually performing that much better. So the question is then, how much longer can Pochettino manage to have the confidence of the fans, the media, and the ownership if the results stay the way they are despite the performances improving? Will he still be in the job if he has 28 points from 22 games like Potter did? How about if he finishes 8th this season? Is his pedigree enough to earn him a full season at Chelsea, or will Chelsea fans start asking for the sack if he finishes 8th or 9th or 10th? I guess only time will tell. Get in the comments with your thoughts below. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.